Yeah, we're back.
We are back.
We managed not to skip a show.
That's right. We're on a roll.
Wow. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to It's Happening Show, community grassroots media for the people, by the people. I'm Jose Gloria.
And I'm Dylan Thompson. We are your hosts tonight.
We are your hosts indeed.
Indeed.
Italy Dooskies.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yup.
It's that. Anyway, It's Happening is the movement of the heart and of the mind. It's the energy of the universe that creates waves inside us and all around us, which allows us to activate, motivate, then elevate vibrationally and intellectually towards love, truth, justice, and wisdom. It's happening in every which way.
It's Happening is a culture of empowerment. It's people having the right to exist and participate as equals. It's a dream of what the world could be, but the future we want is only possible if we make it happen. So stand up, get informed, and fight back.
Boy.
Okay. Whoa.
1-inch punch. You could be anywhere in the world right now, but you're here with us, so we thank you because of you.
It's happening. Woo!
Yeah.
Whoa.
Woo, man. We are excited. Today is going to be a great show. Got a
Indeed.
VIP of VIPs. In a little bit, we'll be talking with Mayor Sarmiento, Vicente Sarmiento from Santana. We'll talk to him about all things Santana.
Mayoral oriented.
Santanetics, relatics. So, yeah, it's going to be a good show. But before that,
Oh, yeah. Big time.
happy International Women's Day to all the mujeres, women, folk out there. Yeah, it is your day, but really every day is your day.
Yeah.
It should be. And definitely, up with rights for women and all in the workplace, at home, in the economy, and in the arts and so many other places where women are leading the way. So especially in the Congress with the squad, of course, being 4 badass mujeres. So yeah, big ups to y'all, ladies.
Indeed.
Oh, and also good news, stimmy checks are on their way.
Get ready.
Give me them stimmy checks, baby.
Blow that money. Well, that's what it's there for. People need it.
Dams. JK. But yeah, there are all sorts of exciting news around the world. Oprah does it again.
Oh yeah, she interviewed her neighbors, huh?
Yes.
They moved over into Montecito.
Mm-hmm. So Meghan and Henry, Meghan from Mexit, former royals, spill the tea on the royal family. Quite, yes.
Yeah, it's like this is like the rich trash talking each other. It's like I don't know.
Absolutely splendid.
Maybe this is one of the good things for the common man to celebrate is the drama of the elite. And especially having Oprah do the interview, it's like an extra layer of eliteness on top of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now since Princess Diana, has there been such scandal and gossip about the royal family, and so folks are very much choosing sides. But we'll say they are benefiting from their royalness, even as they have been stripped of all their titles and such. They're just mere mortals, no longer, God anointed super people of the UK. And the
hard to turn that down,
Oh man, they're looking to rake in millions and millions, and that's part of the reason why they decided to leave, because they couldn't do that Oprah interview without having to renounce their all sorts of things. Right. So in other interesting news, although not quite as interesting as Oprah, GOP decides to own the libs on hashtag cancel Dr. Seuss and hashtag cancel Kermit the Frog, which was absolutely stupid. Because while everybody was excited about the stimulus package being passed, the Republicans found it much more necessary to involve themselves in the culture wars that were surrounding that. Which, by the way, nobody canceled Dr. Seuss. If anything, he's probably selling more than he has, since like when he was alive and stuff. Yeah.
It's his own estate that decided to pull these books for different reasons.
Correct. It wasn't
people.
Yeah, it wasn't like what it was formulated as, but
typically canceling is a push from the outside towards someone, not their own choice to do, kind of. I don't know. It's a little different.
Kermit the Frog dared to, or the Muppet Show, as it was screened recently, or put up on Disney Plus, put up some disclaimers before the shows that there was some cultural insensitivity, and it's just like, and every time that you ever put on a Robin Williams stand up from the 80s and 90s, definitely need to put up all sorts of warnings, like it's like, enter at own risk. But yeah, it's one of those things. But Republicans are foolish. Speaking of foolish Republicans, Trump sent cease and desist letter to the RNC, and the RNC left him on scene.
Ooh.
I don't care what you got to say. I'm still going to talk about you because one important thing about the Trump speech, which was ridiculous, as we've mentioned it last week, was that he mentioned his PAC, Save America, a PAC, and that's where people should donate to try to, to make America great again, and not the RNC.
It's MAGA.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. So that's but our RNC was like, you are a public figure, we can use your name. First Amendment, baby.
Take that. American freedom, baby. Yeah, but one of his defeats Trump's. Another one being that the Supreme Court has rejected the final Trump election challenge. So laying to bed probably the official route for this challenge to the election. And I don't know, when are we supposed to see Trump in the news again? Like, how's this supposed to happen? He's going to sue someone probably, I bet. I don't know. Like, we'll see. Yeah. This could be the end of Trump news.
No way. There's very many lawsuits happening right in different states, in particular Georgia, around the perfect phone call. There was absolutely nothing wrong. A lot of people told me, sir, that was a perfect phone call.
I've seen a lot of phone calls in my day, but
that was almost a perfect 9.9.
It's a weird thing they call perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, and the subpoenas are coming, so hopefully we'll get to see him testifying in defense of himself. That would be awesome.
Be entertainment.
But meanwhile, France, incarcerates their former president for a year, but we can't even hold ours accountable. Yeah.
Says a lot. Okay, so Orange County, we're already in the red tier, but things could get better. I mean, we're already looking towards the orange and having ballparks open up and some stadiums open up again. So we'll see with the coming of the vaccine and everything, if it really gets distributed to the right people. Maybe this isn't that bad of an idea.
Yeah. Well, we will see. And folks are confident, but we're going to talk to our Mr. Mayor in a bit about that.
Indeed.
Or that, let's go ahead and talk about our top stories, shall we?
Top stories.
Top stories.
It's literally 2 stories. Yeah. If there were one less story, it would be top story. Okay, guys.
Say glory.
We've already seen that the stimulus is coming, right? As we mentioned, right? It's pretty much poised to be passed by the House. And it's definitely, we need these checks. We need this support. It's much bigger than the previous one. I think it is in similar size, but maybe a different distribution of the money to one of the first ones, when it's $1.9 trillion. Mm-hmm. And but of course, there are things that the progressives aren't very happy about occurring. Of course, they all campaigned on $2,000 checks. We get $1,400. We wanted, even Biden wanted the $15 minimum wage in there, and it passed the House's version, went to the Senate where it died because of different things, mainly because of Party Joe Manchin and his effort to oppose Bernie Sanders' amendment to include the minimum wage amendment. I guess there's just not enough votes, progressive votes in the Senate for this kind of thing, right? Because when Bernie threatened to add this, Joe Manchin was able to get 7 other Democrats to vote against it. So and Joe Manchin has been a recurring character in this story, right? Willing to withhold his vote to stop this must-pass bill, right? And I applaud Bernie for doing his thing, but it's just going to go back to the House where they're pretty much going to pass it. There's no indication that House Democrats would withhold their vote and send it back or have to do another round on it. I think maybe the pressure's building that they just want to pass it. They don't want to be oppositional to probably the Biden agenda and are just willing to take what we can get right now and just go with it. But at some point, I feel like someone like the progressives are going to need to do what Joe Manchin's doing and figure out a way to strategically find these opportunities to push harder for these things we want. Something that's not that progressive, like not that radical right now, the $15 minimum wage, like Biden wants it and we couldn't even get it. So,
yeah, no, definitely, disappointing. The number one most disappointing probably would be the $15 minimum wage. Folks wanted it. I mean, there was beyond that, which, the Bernie, as you mentioned, put it up for a vote. It failed. And so, and it was Joe Manchin and a lot of the centrists. But when asked, a lot of folks, like we're asking, why were they opposed to it? And nobody can give a really good answer. And, when he went on, to and they'll always go back to like, oh, well, the business owners and things of that nature. It's too fat, too much, too soon. But we haven't increased the minimum wage in 20 years, right? And so
wow.
It's very popular. People in the country wanted it, and this is our moment when we need to push this as far, as we can, because every day that the day goes, every day goes by, it gets closer to election season. For the House, for those up, their seats are up. Most of them in the House, but some in the Senate, and it's gonna, that window of opportunity to pass progressive legislation is leaving us. But having said that, I did read an article from Ross Story by John Stower, and it talked about how given all of the shortcomings of the bill, it was still one of the most progressive bills that Congress has passed in a long time. And as far as how massive it was, it's up there with the Social Security bill. So that is, and also, as much as it was a relief bill, it's also an anti-poverty bill, right? So it was specifically focused on minority working class families, or and I think really tried to fix what was a big issue with the last stimulus bill, that it gave way too much money to corporations, and a lot of them really misused those funds that was not geared to them. It was supposed to be for small businesses. So, it includes being able to deduct half of your childcare costs, the government paying for your health insurance if you lose your job, and really make giving $12 billion for new food stamps money, and in a way getting us closer to realizing Medicare for all by allowing for more people to be able to sign up for Medicare through the expansion of it. So yeah, tweaks that the ACA didn't have that is now being expanded by this bill, and it is even with the shortcomings. We wanted 400 more of unemployment money. We got 300, which is what we had from the last bill. So I think the biggest change, of course, was the $50 minimum wage situation. That was the most disappointing, but by and large, and I think that's probably why Bernie ultimately voted for it. It was very much needed money that was geared towards the folks that are the most in need right now and are really struggling and suffering.
Well, like the thing about Bernie, I give him his due diligence. He made a motion to get this in there, and the votes just weren't there. But I'd like to see that effort put in the House as well at some point, because they actually do have, there's enough progressives in the House to actually try to launch something where they can say, well, we're going to do what Joe Manchin did. We're not going to support this. But is it the right time? I don't know. At some point, they'll need to do it because we will keep losing on these pretty popular issues. And just to the distribution of this money is better, but I feel like if this were really like an anti-poverty, minimum wage is much better because it removes the reliance on welfare, and kind of because the welfare is the state is the taxpayers and the state subsidizing corporations who aren't paying their workers enough. So it's kind of where maybe some situations we need rent control instead of subsidizing. I feel like more welfare is just subsidizing. Whereas if we actually had more wages, that money is pretty much coming from a lot of large corporations that have a lot of benefit in our financial system already. So, you know, but yes, take the good with the bad, and we'll see what happens next, Bill.
Such is life. Such is life. But yeah, so, you know, checks should be coming as early as a week or so for many folks that have direct deposit. So
Brunch time.
Brunch time.
Oh yeah, some lobster avocado toast time.
Mimosas and samosas.
Stimulus well spent.
Yeah, and so let me go ahead and go into our next story, which is our segue story.
Segue story.
For our awesome guest here tonight. So this was from the LA Times. It says here, sorry. Mexican Cultural Center in Santa Ana is butting heads with the city over homeless encampment in its parking lots. Established by a group of immigrant women 2 decades ago, El Centro Cultural de Mexico is a linchpin for the local community. But since the pandemic, homeless have been living in the cultural center's parking lots. Though the encampment has put a dent in small cultural centers already ailing finances, El Centro is allowing the encampment and is working to help the homeless. So this article, which highlights some of the issues that are going on here, but also interviews some of the folks like Benjamin, friend of the show, says they're hoping to make the problem disappear, but the homeless are going to end up somewhere. And right now they're at Centro, and pushing them out of the Centro doesn't mean they're going to disappear. Ben also mentioned that the fines that were put in the number of $1,800 against El Centro by the code enforcement. City spokesman Paul Atkins said the city of Santa Ana is aware of the homeless encampment at El Centro. The encampment is on private property, so the city is seeking to resolve the issue through our code enforcement division. If the property owner does not address the problem, the next step for the city could be an abatement warrant. So, yeah, it's a great article. Voice of OC wrote on it. Gustavo Arellano wrote on it, and it just kind of talks about like the hardships and how at the same time people are empathetic and compassionate towards these communities. I mean, Dylan, you and I, during Occupy, spent time with the homeless in the Civic Center. So you know as well as I do how complicated, but also how much of a humanitarian effort it is needed to do this. So anyhow, with that, this issue is complicated, but so is politics, and that's why we need, the experience and leadership necessary to be able to tackle these kinds of issues, whether it's parking, whether it's homelessness, whether it's immigrant rights, economic prosperity, development that doesn't cause impacts like gentrification and other displacement to our working communities. And the most important issue right now, the COVID-19 and how cities are grappling with that. And none, I believe in my personal opinion, has really taken it upon themselves to fight for the needs of our community, like our guest here today. And I want to go ahead and introduce our mayor of Santa Ana, Vicente Sarmiento. Welcome to the show, sir.
Welcome.
Hey, what's going on, fellas? How are you guys doing?
Good. You last time you were here, you were just a candidate, just somebody trying to be the next, to take over the small shoes. Wouldn't say big, the big shoes of the former mayor Miguel Pulido. So maybe you have to get new shoes altogether.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be able to fit in those shoes without like a lot of tearing and ripping. No, we won't go there. But listen, what I did want to say is I remember you guys were the first show, or your show was the first show I appeared on when I declared my candidacy, and we were still pre-COVID back then because we met at the office site over there off of Grand, and so yeah, man. So that a lot has happened since then. So a whole campaign, we've gone through a whole pandemic, and we're still in it, but it looks like we could see a little bit of hope on the horizon. But you guys kicked it all off, man, with your show. You guys kind of inspired me. So you're partly to blame, or you're partly to get credit.
Yeah. Won't take all the credit. Yeah.
Candidates, come on our show. It's a springboard into all of your dreams. No, it's not true. We've had a lot of folks that haven't won, but you did, and so did Jessie Lopez. Had her on the show. Ty as well. So, it's a new council. It's a new day for Santana. There's a lot of hope, but it just, all of, when they mention the word hope, I always get these flashbacks of Barack Obama and what, a lot of the potential was, but perhaps potential that wasn't lived up to it. So, I mean, not to say that you're him or this is that, but very much, you are in a situation where it's a clean slate in a ways, but also there's all of these problems that, we're already integrated into the local politics, right? Whether it's the POA's influence on the city government to, the bureaucracy and the red tape and all sorts of issues. And of course, the pandemic that was you inherited. So how have you been able to tackle on all these things, or how has things changed and City Hall since you got in?
Well, you know what? I'm either cursed or I'm blessed, because I know when I came on the council in 2008 was the first year, as you were talking about, President Obama, he was coming in inheriting a global recession, right? And so when I came in on the council, we were dealing with a recession, a local recession that was about to break the city and force us into bankruptcy. I think our general fund balance had gone down as low as $3 million, right? So that was like panic time. And for me, and in my personal life, my professional life, I'm a bankruptcy attorney. So just coming on during that time, I thought, look, nobody signs up to start laying people off, cutting services, cutting back. And so fast forward now to running for mayor, and here I come on, during a once in a century pandemic, right? So yeah, things are, look, a saying, right? If you can govern during a crisis, you can govern during any time. So I figure now is a moment, like you said. I think what makes this council unique, maybe it's the hope, but a lot of it is also, such a departure from where we were, right? So you have a lot of very, not only young, council members, but you have council members that are very new to government, which is kind of refreshing, right? Because they're seeing things with a different pair of lenses. These aren't people that have run for office ad nauseum. Because I think I had run, against 3 very seasoned candidates for the mayor's seat, and everybody had held office, one place or another, whether it was school board, the college board, the assembly, or on the city council. So here we have council members that the next most experienced council member next to me has a full 2 years under their belt. So that is a very, very short, time on the council, just dealing with government and these issues. So look, I see it as an opportunity rather than as a burden. Some people say, well, people are inexperienced. The way I see it is that people are, there's a freshness to it, right? And it's tough because I feel bad them being introduced to really difficult issues, because they're seeing on their watch people pass away, right? Families being devastated, families, not knowing where they're going to find money for rent, having to bury people. And how do you go through that? How do you say goodbye in a way that is, really, really, inhumane, right? To do it through a glass window and not be able to be with somebody you care about. So these are real things. How do you feed people during these times? And so I feel for them, but I also think they're going to grow up really fast, and they're going to be able to handle no matter what comes next, right? Because I think if you can manage this, you'll be good. And I have a lot of hope in them. So.
Yeah, we're definitely facing the challenges like with COVID, as you're saying. And it seems like there's a little article in the Voice of OC here talking about your position, feeling like the city's been abandoned. And can you summarize kind of what your argument here is for us?
I guess the way I see it is that we've been the most impacted city from the beginning of the pandemic. So everybody predicted it. You could foresee it. We had all this, conditions that were going to spell disaster for us, right? We had families that were living in overcrowded conditions. We had people who were working as essential workers, having, not having the luxury to stay home, but to be out, having to work in, either restaurants, grocery stores, hospitals, and you couple that with a community that already had some underlying chronic health conditions, right? So all those things were just a recipe for disaster. So as soon as the pandemic hit, it starts spiking. Somebody goes out and works, in South County in the back part of the restaurant. They get sick, they come home, they get the entire household sick, right? Whether it's, a multi-generational household where they get their, abuelos and abuelas sick, their brothers and sisters, their kids, and it just circulates. And we saw it. So I guess my frustration, it did kind of peak on Tuesday because or last Tuesday, was because I just felt like, look, we're literally going on this for a year, and the resources and the help that we thought should have been there from the very beginning, they're trickling in. They're too late, they're too scarce, and they're too limited. So it just really upsets me because, look, there will be a day of reckoning after this is all over. Those 700 families plus are going to say, where was everybody? What did you do to help prevent this? Because these deaths, in my opinion, were very preventable, right? I mean, there could have been ways, and there could have been resources, and everything should have been, let's get to the heart of where this epicenter is. And everybody knew it was Santa Ana. So yeah, I think a lot of people called it blame. I just called it responsibility and accountability, right? The way I see it is like, okay, I'm not here to, call anybody out, but what did you do? And where were you? And so that's where I think we are right now, where, we had to rely on the governor saying, we're going to dedicate 40% of our resources going to, communities that have been hard hit, and let's really take a stand on equity. But it took the state to do that rather than our local health agency, right? To say, let's see where this problem is and let's attack it. And if had we done that, my theory is we could have been in the red tier. We might have been in the orange tier already, because if you attack where the problem is, the mean or the average would have gone down. We probably would have been one of the first counties to open up quicker, right? So, just from my observation, that's where I think this thing was flawed.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good persuasive argument for everyone involved. I mean, it seems, according to this article, like South County, most of the inoculations have gone to South County residents. So, yeah, but if they want to open up, you got to target the problem, right? And I think this definitely, this ties into a lot of issues, right? Sorry, losing my train of thought here.
Well, let me tell you where it might lead into as well, right? And this is something I did want to mention to you, and look, you guys may get the scoop on this without even looking for it and searching for it. So, man, you guys scoop without even asking. So look, all this begs the question, because think about communities that have done well, that have been able to help their people. And the first city that comes to mind is Long Beach, right? I mean, if you look at what they've done, they've been sort of not only the state model, but nationally, they're saying, what did they do right? And I think one of the things that they did right was they peeled off from the county of LA years ago and said, we have such a unique demographic, and we have such unique challenges, and we're a large enough city that we can have our own healthcare agency. So to me, Santa Ana fits that profile in Orange County. We're a very large city. We have a unique demography. We have challenges that are unique to the other 33 cities in the county. So, and we've always been treated, in my opinion, sort of as an inferior city, right? Services come to us late, whether it happens to be with public health care, whether it happens to be with social services. So to me, I think that we couldn't have made a better argument than what's happening right now to say, let's study how we can maybe peel off in the county and become our own healthcare agency and provide those services to people who have chronic health conditions. Because this pandemic may be, a one in a century thing, but we're still going to have healthcare problems after this, maybe more, right? And, we have people with very unique conditions, as you were saying, from South County, North County. And so, my hope is that we learned a lesson from this pandemic, and we realize, we should be able to go ahead and tailor a healthcare system to our people here in Santa Ana, and not have to beg and plead with the county that just has a lot of conflict with us, right? I mean, I don't know how to beg and plead well. I've tried to scream and holler, but yeah. I just figured, let's just do it ourselves. We can do this. I mean, we can do this ourselves.
That makes a lot of sense. And considering that the county has recently kind of gotten in trouble for, by the Voice of OC, because the Voice of OC keeps doing records requests to the county, they kind of had a secretive process of approving some COVID contracts. So I don't know if that ties into maybe Santa Ana, what could have been better taken care of had that information been public. And we can see, oh, wait, maybe we need contracts that focus on us, right?
Yeah, well, I certainly think that, just like Long Beach, they were able to figure out, how do we do this? Who do we take care of first, and do it really effectively and efficiently. And I think for us, we could have done that. We could have been that city where we could have, hit those hard hit zip codes, and maybe, even more granular, go down to those census tracts where you realize, man, this is where the problems, you could literally identify where the blocks of people were, where they lived that were being hard hit. So look, I think that, you guys probably know this, West Covina, the city of West Covina just broke off from LA County, right? They did it obviously for very different reasons that I would be dictating. They didn't want to be under the restrictions of the county, because they felt that the county restrictions were too oppressive, were too limiting. West Covina was ready to open up, and they didn't like being told that they couldn't. For us, I mean, it's more just the resources, right, that we need to, that we can provide to the residents. So I wouldn't do it as sort of, quick on the trigger as they did. I think, we need a feasibility study. We need to figure out, hey, what's this going to cost? What's this going to look like? It'll take years, but if we don't do it now, we'll never do it. And, we have short memories, and we're going to say, look, everything was fine. And so just like the county filed bankruptcy years ago, people didn't learn lessons. I think, now, given the handling of this pandemic, I think it's a good moment for us to study how we can, break off and become our own healthcare agency.
Yeah. I've noticed that the issue, like the county has been a very huge problem, which is why, there's a big push, by many folks, to get Katrina Foley elected, right? Or no, she's going for the board of supervisors, correct?
She is. She's the mayor of Costa Mesa, running for District 2, and so
yeah. Because, for a long time, the Republicans have had a stranglehold. And it's so ironic that, like, many of the Republicans are anti-maskers but they are very much on the front line when it comes to, like, getting vaccinated and getting all the resources when it, getting their health taken care of. But Santana, as you mentioned, and in Anaheim, but not as much as Santana, are getting the short end of the stick when it comes to addressing the very real need. And I think, as you mentioned recently at a city council meeting, there hasn't been a big vaccination site here in Santana, where other cities like Anaheim are already ready to open up their third one. Why is this happening, and who's at fault? And many people will be like, well, it's, the buck stops at the mayor. But, if folks do a little digging and with the Voice of OC, get some information, that they'll see, it's like, well, there's, a lot of moving pieces. It's our representatives that go to Congress and advocate for us or don't. It's the ones in the state government, and it's also, the governor ultimately that, gets to decide who gets the resources and who doesn't. And you and the council, are doing as much as we can to advocate, but also use those funds as best as possible, right? To really direct them to the people that need them, whether it's vaccination, testing sites, or even this rental assistance program that is very robust in Santana, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the whole reason of being an autonomous agency, because, let's say Long Beach doesn't have to wait for the county of LA to give it resources or to give it money. They get a direct allocation. And I think that's where I think Santana needs to understand, because the city and the board of supervisors have had this tension forever, right? I mean, because they're political bodies, right? And our political, sort of democratic, majority-led council, doesn't see eye to eye with a Republican-led board of supervisors. So these decisions on health, on public health, these decisions on homelessness, these decisions on social services, they just become political, right? And so, we have trouble reconciling that. So the way I see it, had we gotten a direct allocation of vaccines, we would have distributed it to the most impacted neighborhoods, right? We did that during, last year, if you guys will remember, during the CARES Act, when we received funding directly from the federal government, I mean, we didn't stand up a large site. We did a bunch of mobile sites going into neighborhoods and going into parks and going to people who felt a distrust of government, right? I mean, they already distrust government. When you start asking them, hey, fill this out, do this, they're like, wait, whoa. But when you go into their neighborhoods, you knock on their door. And granted, man, the city employees who did that, I mean, it was when things were really, really at its peak. To go to somebody's door who may be ill, look, I felt it was a proud moment for the city because a lot of other communities weren't doing that. They were just putting up a site saying, that's where it is. Good luck getting there, But I think going into those areas, I think that were hard hit. And you guys know, a lot of multifamily areas, on Townsend, on Ray, Minnie, all those places where people, live in a very, very densely populated neighborhood. It was a good moment. We delivered 35,000 plus tests. And that's what I was hoping we could see with these vaccines. Had we been able to do it, had we gotten a direct allocation, that's exactly the template model that we would have followed. But, again, we're as a city, we're reliant and dependent on the state, on the county, and others to give us supplies rather than us receiving it directly. So hopefully things will change. Like I said, I just want to get the discussion started because it is far, far overdue. This is not sort of dispute is not going to end with the pandemic, nor will it end with the homeless crisis and housing crisis we have. It's just something that's going to be ongoing. So we might as well get the discussion started.
Yeah, an interesting solution. And I like that you bring up Long Beach and trying to help the most affected people. Like Long Beach, we're going to be having a hero pay, right, in Santa Ana, where was it pharmacy and grocery workers will receive more wages, right?
Yeah, they'll be receiving an increase of $4 an hour for a period of 4 months, 120 days roughly. So I think it was a fair temporary ordinance because it was narrowly tailored. To give credit also for some of the stores, like let's say Trader Joe's, you had some stores like Northgate Gonzalez that started out with hero pay on their own, right? So unsolicited, they just said, hey, right thing to do. Let's give, folks an extra, $2, $3. So we want to give credit for that. So they will be able to, under this ordinance, and it was an urgency ordinance. So I got to say, I'm really proud of the council because it took a 2/3 majority to do that. But it wasn't to villainize. It wasn't to, be punitive on the grocery industry. It was more to say, look, your folks, your employees, man, have been under crazy conditions, right? They've had to be out there braving things and braving really hostile people in some ways, telling them, getting in their face. And, I remember at the beginning, you had some people who were anti-maskers going in and screaming at some of these folks. And all these folks wanted to do was just do their job, right? And be safe. And so we just thought it was fair. We thought, I thought it was narrowly tailored. We waited to see what was going to happen in the lawsuit with Long Beach, and the judge and the court over there denied the preliminary injunction request by the Grocers Association. So we thought we are on solid legal footing. But look, I think, I think it was also important for many of the grocers who were saying, hey, if you're gonna impact us, don't forget about the Walmarts and the Targets and those larger big box stores that really are the large franchises nationwide, because they do sell, food as well, right, and groceries within, and so we were able to, make sure that it was tailored where it was a big enough net to cast for them, but not large enough where it was going to impact the smaller stores, right, where you have family-owned businesses, smaller stores that have maybe a few employees. They're not publicly traded companies, so those are exempted. But yeah, I think there has been, and I know, some of the arguments go, well, why don't you do it citywide for everybody? Well, not all industries prospered during this time, right? The grocery industry did do well. So we just thought it was fair to try to celebrate those workers who were there.
Right. And so I think we saw in Long Beach that Kroger at least threatened to pull some stores. I wondered, like, if that were to happen here, like, how would you address that? Like, how would you respond to that?
You know, the good news is that we're, you know, there's some negative things about being a densely populated city, and there's some positive things. If you look at densely populated cities, you can draw a circle around them and realize if you drop a store anywhere in Santa Ana, you're going to have customers, right? I mean, because we just have a lot of people around. So I think, you know, there was a store right on 17th, actually Westminster, just west of Fairview, right? An old Stater Brothers that had been up there, you know, for years. It closed, I think, you know, right after the pandemic started, or maybe it was right before the pandemic started. But, you know, the Northgate's going to be moving in there. So that's where I've seen when grocery stores have closed, having nothing to do with premium pay or any other, you know, economic impacts. We just have, you know, shifting models of, you know, of grocery industry where you see some of the more ethnic stores coming in, whether they sell Vietnamese groceries, you know, Mexican groceries. I think, you know, we have a diverse enough community that, look, we'll always be able to serve our people, and there'll always be an interest in having, you know, these large footprint stores. So I think we'll be fine. I think what happened in Long Beach was unfortunate because it looked very much to me like it was retaliation, right? And it had nothing to do with economics. But it certainly is a clever way, and, you know, I guess harsh way to do that as well.
Right. Yeah. Well, I definitely applaud the hero pay. And I mean, I feel it's part of an agenda. We need to have a good agenda, right? Because
very much necessary. And you know, I'll tell you this. Sorry to cut you off, Dylan, but there was I went to the Rite Aid not too long ago, and I talked with the customers or the employees there. It's like, because I remember hearing I think the store manager from that store, you know, saying, you know, speaking up on behalf of herself and, you know, the employees that she works with, her colleagues, and so it's like, oh yeah, I heard her. It's like, yeah, it's you know, that's our manager. She spoke up for us, and, you know, like, and they were just so happy. They mentioned how they've, you know, it's like it's long overdue, and it's a very welcome, you know, like bump in their pay, in that they've been on the front lines and have had to deal with all sorts of madness, you know, and putting their lives at risk, you know. So yeah, you know, it's just that is very much of welcome to them. But I don't know, Dylan, what you were gonna say.
Oh yeah, big time. I would just echo that. But I did want to bring it back. Maybe we can find some areas of disagreement. Back to the Segway story that Jose had talked about with the El Centro and the homeless encampment. So there seems to be a little bit of a conflict developing between the city and El Centro, mainly over, it seems, probably they're allowing a homeless encampment, and now I guess were those fines code enforcement fines, the $1,800. That seems like the official way for the city to proceed through its standard course of action to deal with the issue, right? But I mean, can you give kind of your position on what, like, the city should do here?
You know, I can't go into too much detail because we do have it, you know, as a potential litigation matter, because, you know, El Centro is represented by counsel. But look, I can talk about it generally and not go into too much detail. But I think, you know, because El Centro, you know, is a nonprofit here based in the city, and we know that their mission really isn't to deal with homelessness issues, right? Their mission is to provide, you know, a center where, you know, culture is celebrated, people are supported. And so we understand that. My concern is, you know, I think the way the dynamic happened there is it happened sort of unexpectedly, right? I don't think that they, you know, decided, hey, we're going to put this on as another, responsibility or a duty that we want to take on. I think they were just trying to be humane, right? And allowing people to be there and realizing there's a problem, as there is citywide, as there is countywide, statewide, nationally, right? But I think, you know, what happened was the courtyard was closing here recently, and it closed kind of quietly, right? There wasn't a whole lot of notice to, you know, anybody in the area. So what was a small group of people quickly turned into a large group of people, right? And, you know, when you have that, whether it's El Centro, whether it's, you know, the Union Pacific right away, the train station, or any other place, when you have that, there are public health dangers, and it becomes a dangerous condition because there aren't any bathrooms. There aren't any places for people, to go and relieve themselves, and not to get too graphic, but those can become very dangerous. And we saw that. You guys saw that at the Civic Center, at the Plaza of the Flags, where you had kids trying to get to the library and they couldn't, and it just became a very unsafe place. So when that happens, code enforcement automatically just, sends out notices first, and then they send out fines, right? So the problem gets cured, because El Centro was close enough to the courtyard where I believe, people meandered over there from the courtyard that was right down the street. When it closed, not everybody went to Yale as was expected, but we should have been able to foresee that. And that was, that's the county facility. But El Centro, where it's located very, very close to a neighborhood, right? The Willard neighborhood, where there's, a really densely populated area. So that's my concern, is that we're able to help work with them so we can, cure the problem and make sure it's done humanely, civilly, where, things aren't broken down the way they may have been at some other, places like the Plaza of the Flags, and the way things were done kind of hostile, right? And here, I think there's an opportunity to create a different way of solving this problem, which is going in with maybe a civilian, a team of people who are professionals that can say, look, let's find placement, resources, just support, and that's where I hope this will go, because I know El Centro, I'm sure, wants to go back to its mission of opening its doors, right, safely, because right now I don't think they can open up their doors to the people who want to visit in a safe way.
Yeah, it's a very complicated situation, as you mentioned. I think it started with it's like, hey, there's only a few people, it's like, yeah, just let them sleep, and then once the day gets started, then folks can go somewhere else or whatever, and it just quickly got out of hand. But yeah, it is a complicated issue, even for organizations like Mercy House or others that have much more resources and are fully geared in towards doing that kind of work. It's even a lot for them to deal with. So, and the article that Gustavo, brought up, I think it's a fair kind of understanding about, the intrinsic issue within, and in that you're quoted in saying, I understand that they're trying to be benevolent and humane. The problem is now that they've become a dangerous condition. The complexity of homelessness is hard to tackle, let alone for a group not built for that. And also, like, the issues that it creates for the surrounding communities. I mean, I know folks that know folks that live there, and they're saying, like, why is El Centro bringing this? Now my kids can't go outside and play, or there's theft, or there's drug use, and it just really becomes what is. And it's not all of the homeless population, obviously. Maybe 25% of the population or less is involved in maybe like the criminal aspect of it, but there's the other 75% that just they're out down on their luck, they're mentally ill or whatnot, and they need some kind of respite. But as it always goes back to is like, I always said, I think Santana, it has a lot of shortcomings, but it also give credit where credit's due, because I believe Santana has done more than any other city in the county to address this issue, and has really become like the dumping ground, for lack of a better word, from police officers that drop the homeless folks here, from the inmate, the folks that get put in the jail, that then just are released in the middle of the night in our communities, and all sorts of things that then exacerbates the situation to where like and then also there's resources here, which is a good thing, but also not a challenging thing. And I believe that one of the things that the city has done is joining in a lawsuit, right, to get other cities in Orange County to also address this issue and not let it be just Santana, right? So it's all these layers, perhaps, that are behind this issue, and it's much more than the dichotomy of like city bad, homeless, and nonprofit groups good, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the easy, that's the easy headline, right? Somebody's a villain, somebody's a hero, right? It's not that simple. And I gotta believe that, the fact that we're in a pandemic and we have COVID restrictions on just places where people could go, right, to get help. I mean, they've had to reduce their capacity by by more than 50% at, some of the sites. So those resources are now less available to people. So, that's why the visibility is so high. That's why, an encampment grew to the size that it did, in my opinion, at El Centro, just because, you can't go receive those services where you normally would. And so, they didn't have a place to go. I do have hope, and I do believe that once, restrictions start lifting, where there's more capacity, we can maybe, start helping more people out at not just the city shelter, because we're going to be opening up a permanent shelter very soon. But I know the shelter that the county operates, will be opening up, and they'll be at full capacity. And I believe they have 400 plus, spaces for people. But my hope is that it's going to be done well, and that it's going to be done in a way that all of us come out of this realizing there's a better way to address this homelessness problem. I mean, you can't criminalize it. You can't come in and break it down and be, forceful. If we can talk about this and not litigate this matter, and, it's funny because before the council meeting, people were saying, why are you guys suing El Centro? Well, we weren't. I mean, what nobody is. I mean, a code enforcement violation is basically to say there's a dangerous condition on your premises, right? And right now, El Centro, they are the property owners on that property. As an attorney, I know that if somebody gets injured, if somebody, gets harmed or, dies, I mean, that is on El Centro's property. And I'm worried about that. I'm worried about them, being able to continue going forward on that. So it was basically to say, hey, we've got an issue. Let's try to problem solve it. But, we took it into closed session because anytime, somebody, has counsel and represents them, it could be a potential litigation matter for us. But this way, we're able to also work with them to try to resolve it. So, look, I think that because everybody knows El Centro, they do good work. We want them to open up and provide services to people in the neighborhood. I mean, they're a vital resource for all of us. So we know that they want to open up, and hopefully we working together, I trust that we can, we'll be able to get there.
Yeah, that would be good, because I'm just trying to imagine what the situation is. I'd like it to be like the one you talked about, where we find a non-violent or a non-necessarily criminalizing way to handle the situation, because I understand where they're coming from, right? They want to be able to resolve the issue, but it seems like the main course of action is to call the police and have them evicted. So I'm trying to imagine all the solutions to the problem. It seems like it's either they get evicted, or that they continue the encampment but solve the code enforcement issues, if that's not contradictory, or that you guys come up with another way to do it that's not through the police. So I'm hoping for the latter, if any.
Yeah, I know that last year we had a really good discussion during the budget that I hope will go differently this time, because I'm sure we'll have it again. But how we, homelessness was kind of dropped on the police as well. It's like, all right, you guys handle it, right? And that's not really their core function. Their core function isn't really to address issues having to deal with people who need social services, right? They have a different mission also. So to the extent that we can work with professionals that are able to, address whether it's substance abuse, whether it's just, tragic illnesses that, or whatever conditions create the unsheltered population. If we have people that are knowledgeable about that, and police can support that if it does get violent, because there are some people that are violent, but there are people that are violent in regular society, right, in regular population. So that's what the police are there for. So nobody says they shouldn't have a role, but they shouldn't be the first contact, in my opinion. First contact should be somebody to try to break this down and say, look, what are we dealing with? Let me assess what this is. So if we can do that, look, I think we can change the way, at least de-escalating all these contacts that we have with them, whether it's the unsheltered population, whether it's any population,
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I don't see why rank and file officers wouldn't be on board with this, because I mean, I've been on a ride along, and that's all, like 90% of the calls were homeless related calls, where they actually couldn't do anything about the situation. So
yeah, and that's why people complain about long response times, right? Because whenever you have those contacts, you have to document it. So you have rank and file, officers trying to write up a report, and then they're getting calls for something else, right? And then there's a delay and people get upset. Well, I think if they were relieved of these responsibilities, they could be handling some of those issues that, we do have as a city, and we have to acknowledge that as well. It is, there are pockets of, of areas in town that do have issues that, police need to respond to, and, they need to respond to quickly. And that's, I hope, where we'll get.
Yeah. I want to just bring up that Ben Vasquez mentioned, this is our homeless matter. We need to partner with the city. The mayor has pushed for better relationships with the city. The fines are the small issue. So, I mean, perhaps it's like there's still this like residual bad taste in our mouths as a community when it comes to like, the mayor's seats, and it's like and we haven't been able to snap out of it. I'm just saying, like, we as the community, not we as a Centro. I'm not with El Centro, but I just think that, like, I think the shift in the dynamics is perhaps different, where like the knee-jerk, response would be like, like it's the mayor's fault because he's probably being horrible, and 9 times out of 10 you'd be right. But in this case, like, you're in good faith trying to figure out what's the best solution, while at the same time, understanding that it's much more complex. And I like the fact that you bring up this situation about this is one way in where this concept of defund the police, where you might not agree with like that term, or like impacting public safety. During your campaign you spoke about being able to redirect funds in towards professionals that could address this matter, whether it's the homeless issue, but also mental health crises, right, and other situations. So I think that it's a hopeful situation that could really help us to just not just address this particular situation, but just the situation in general, and how we address public nuisances of public safety, and the humanity of all people living in Santana, whether they're houseless or living in homes, right?
Hey, well, we got to understand, man. People are living. It's been 26 years, right? So old habits die hard, man. Because I know we're used to a certain exchange. We're used to a certain dynamic, and I'm not saying we're always going to walk hand in hand. Being in lockstep with everybody. I mean, we'll have differences, but I'm very hopeful that they won't be differences that we can't at least figure out, right? I mean, there'll be differences and hopefully approach, but I think all of us want all of us want us to be able to have nonprofits be able to do what they do well, and not have the city be an impediment or be oppressive or hostile on them. So,
absolutely. Let's shift gears a little bit. Just going back to the COVID situation, because one thing that kind of came up recently was this whole thing with the patches and pins, and the conversation around the reopening of restaurants and such, right? So, people started saying, like, why are all these people congregating here? Who's responsible for all this? Like, and people started tagging all the council members and all that good stuff. So, what are your thoughts as far as like the level of compliance or lack of compliance to the suggestions or the guidelines put on by the governor and by the city, to not have indoor dining and be safe, and some folks not really sticking to it. And really not having any kind of repercussions in that the sheriffs and other law enforcement have said, we're not going to enforce this. So then what do you do, right?
Yeah, that was difficult, and I think it continues to be, because we understand businesses are trying to hold on, right? They're close to failing. They want to keep their employees fed. They want to keep their employees earning a salary, but you can't do it at the expense of endangering not only your staff but the public's health. So it has been difficult, and that event was one that was difficult because a lot of it was wasn't handled at the council level. So events aren't approved or disapproved at the council. So we were just as surprised when that happened. And unfortunately, we were disappointed, that it did, because we were at a very difficult moment, right? It was right after the holidays or soon after, where the numbers were probably as high as they've been. And we're just not ready for that. But when you see businesses that are doing things indoors and they're doing things maskless, and we see a lot of them, the way I saw it is that, we could do this with a carrot or a stick. We could go in and, shut them down, or we could fine them again, just continually fine them. But I think if you fine somebody $100, for a citation for violating, the state order and the municipal order, they'll just build that right into their, to their overhead cost. But my approach has been, and this is what I told, our city manager and our chief of police. Look, go give them notice, let them know, send them a letter. Hey, you guys are not in compliance. You guys are defying these orders. Your state license or permit will be compromised when it comes up for renewal, because they have to renew business licenses. They have to renew ABC licenses. They have to renew other, state licenses that are issued. And, the local planning and police departments have an opportunity to comment on those for renewal. So if you have somebody that has, they've quadrupled their calls for service, well, you may not want to renew that license, right? And in this case, if you've been defying these orders for the past 6 months, yeah, I don't know if you're going to be a good candidate for renewal. So I just told everybody, make sure you send those letters out, because there is nothing more valuable to a business than their license or permit. And you can fine them till you're blue in the face, but they'll pay it just so they can continue operating. So my hope is that will get their attention. And again, and we're going to be getting more monies for business grants for a lot of these businesses that are struggling. So we get the struggle, but my hope is that we direct those monies to the good actors, because we have some businesses that literally have not opened up for a year, like not even opened up a single time. And they're hanging on by a thread, because they're still paying rent. They're still paying, expenses. They're probably furloughing their employees. But yet, you have others that have, continued operating like nothing's happening, right? Like it's just a normal year. And so the way I see it is that we, have to also incentivize. And, I've tried to speak to my council and said, let's reward good behavior. Let's get the money into the hands of people that desperately need it and have been following these orders. And those that have been defying it, look, they go to the back of the line, or they may not receive any of it. But, to be fair, I think a lot of these business owners got confused early on, man, because, think about what Trump was saying, think about what the sheriff was saying, so they figure, who do I listen to? My local government, my municipal government is telling me, there's a mandatory mask order in effect. You can't be indoors, you can't do this. But yet, other federal and county authorities are telling me different. So you're going to almost cherry pick who you want to listen to, right, to your own advantage. And to the extent we could have had a consistent message, I think people would have followed rules a lot better. But, they see other states, opening up like we see now, this ridiculous, move by many states to just say, pandemic's over, everything goes back to normal. That's what I think people have been living with. And it, whether it's honest confusion or whether it's sort of selective confusion to say, I think I'll just listen to this person because it makes sense to me, or it benefits me. So that's where I think we are. But yeah, it really is troubling. And look, I spend almost, half my day, responding to emails from people saying, I just saw a place this past weekend, opened up, people were inside, and, and it was a nightmare, right? And so, it is troubling. It is troubling.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Tying in another Santa Ana theme with COVID. I don't know, the last time it's been a few years since I read the housing element, but last I heard it was like 4.5 or 4 point something average household size in Santa Ana, right? And that's definitely impacted the people with regard to COVID, right? Because it just means that there's more people living in enclosed spaces together, right? So, I mean, what's the future for housing considering all this, right? Like this can't continue.
Yeah, and and you guys know the what happened to the housing opportunity ordinance last year, where it was watered down from 15% to 5%. So the good news is I think we have a lot of new members of the council that ran on, on the issue of housing and how do we make housing more accessible, more affordable, more available to our families that are the most in need. So, I just actually convened or actually called for an ad hoc committee on housing just last Tuesday at the council meeting. And so we're going to be taking a deep dive on some issues that, include the housing element, that include, the amendments to the general plan, revisiting the housing opportunity ordinance, and looking at things like, rent stabilization and, and rent control and, just cause evictions, things that I think have been on the back burner. And I think, we need a fresh pair of eyes to look at it. Again, hopeful and optimistic that it's going to get a fair, hearing this time. And I believe that it's, look, it's long overdue because councils past have really not focused in on where the need is in the city. And if you do that simple exercise and say, what's, 50% of our residents are tenants, or more than 50% of our residents are tenants. More than 80% of them earn less than $53,000. All right, so if you just do the math, you start realizing where's the need. The need is for either very low or extremely low AMI construction of housing, right? So if you start from that premise, just looking at the need, we don't have a need for, moderate or market rate housing just because that prices out 80% of our folks, right? So you're building that housing for people outside the city. You're not building it for the residents. And if you want to solve problems of overcrowding that you're talking about, but think about this, you wouldn't just be solving an overcrowding problem if you made, units more available, more affordable. You would be addressing the parking problem, which is a huge problem in the city. Yeah. Because the reason why you have a parking problem, because you have 3 or 4 families, or maybe let's just say, let's be conservative, 2 or 3 families living in a unit built for one. Well, the parking's built for one family, but because you have, 2 or 3 families with cars to go with it, and of course we're going to have a parking issue. So,
Yeah, speaking of parking, well, is there anything we can do in the meantime? Like, I noticed when I lived in Long Beach, they swept like one side of the street one day and then another the other day. And it seems like there's gigantic neighborhoods where it's like you're banished from parking on the street. Like, I mean, I recently got a parking spot, so, but I was doing that for years, and I look outside still, and there's just so many people following the street sweeper truck around, spending their hours during the day, hanging out in red zones in their car with their hazard lights on, waiting for the street sweeper to come. And I see this every week. But I mean, is there something an engineering study we can do in the meantime? Like, how do we organize this? I don't know if you.
Yeah, we've tried doing parking studies, and I think there was one that was halfway done, and hopefully, we fund the rest of it, and I think it's worth it. But look, there are basic things that we can do already. I mean, so schools around us are all around our neighborhoods, right? If we can figure out a way, just like we do joint use agreements with some of our schools and use their field space, why can't we use some of the parking for overnight parking, right? They're in our neighborhoods, they're not being used. Maybe we could use those to kind of relieve some of that, some of the parking scarcity. But also, when we develop multifamily developments, there's a ratio that gets built in. It's either done by zone or it's negotiated, right? So a lot of it is like 1.5 spaces per unit. The way, some cities, again, going back to not just Long Beach, because we keep on, wanting to be Long Beach. Well, they don't do everything, right? But if you look at like, urban areas like, San Francisco, Manhattan, Chicago, places that parking is really, I mean, we've got a problem with parking. They really have a problem with parking. No. So they require that developments have stacked parking, right? And if you've seen those, we already have this one multifamily development called Vista del Sol, right on, I believe it's off Rate, just north of Fairview. But stacked parking is, for one space, you can get 2 spaces out of it because it is a mechanical lift. So, they either call it lift parking or stack parking. So what is one space in an area becomes 2. So those are ways that are just, kind of commonsensical that you can do that. And whether it is maybe staggering the street sweeping every other day, it just becomes confusing. And sometimes people get cited more when that happens, from what I understand. But there are some common sense ways that we could do that. But you want to alleviate parking, alleviate the overcrowding. And then that'll take care of most of the problem right there.
Jeez. Yeah, it seems like parking, like homelessness. I always bring it up. Like you want to divide a community, talk about homelessness or parking, and whether it's parking and like the people, the homeowners versus the apartment dwellers, or just homeowners, within themselves. Like you could just have like a retired older person that just is one person or maybe two. They only have one car and they drive that, and they put it parking in their parking lot. But you got the person next door that has 4 kids. Each of those kids has a car, and then they have their homies, or their friends, or their partners over, and it just becomes this whole nightmare where you just have these parking wars, as they call it, and they bust out the chairs and the
cones,
and
the trash cans,
the little kids, cars,
We're a walkable city, man. We're pretty flat. We should be biking more. We should be walking more. Public transportation hopefully takes a bigger hold on us, because all we see in some of our transit lines are senoras getting to and from work. I mean, a lot of us could hop on the system, and so we'll see. I mean, I guess I lived up in the Bay, and I didn't I took my car up there, and all it did was take up space. I never used it because things were just so easy to get around in, when it came to whether it was BART, whether it was Muni or any other public transportation. And I'm hoping we have that. I think we have a city that's designed for that. We have small blocks. We don't have these gigantic arterials that maybe some of the South County more planned cities do. Ours is very walkable, and the more we design that way in the future, I think the better it'll be for generations to follow. Because look, if we go at this rate, cars are going to take over the entire city. So it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. We can like everybody is mandated to get the little cars and no more big trucks. Like that would solve it. Like I don't like clown cars. Like it's just it's really difficult for me. But I think you're right as far as San Francisco. Like I was an Uber driver, and I saw how even like as evil as Uber the corporation is, how they allowed for them to have another choice on their transportation. But San Francisco is one thing and Orange County is another thing. They killed the railways way back when. So we're just really working from a place that a system of transportation is broken. We aren't a pre-planned community like Irvine is, where they have like these vast like highways, in between their so all these things. But I don't know. I'm hoping.
But we have a soul.
Right.
We have real people. We have a real personality, man. We're authentic. So
it's grassroots.
No, I love it. Listen, I know we're running short on time, and there's so much things that I wish I could ask about, but maybe just real quickly, what are your thoughts about reopening the schools in Santana? Are you for it? Are you against it? Are you kind of tentative on it?
Oh, you asked the simple question last, man. So that one's easy.
Okay.
No. Look, I and you guys heard about this, right? The mayor of San Francisco, who's very progressive, very cool, Mayor Breed. She ended up suing the school district up in San Francisco because they wouldn't open up. So that's how. For San Francisco to be suing their district to open up because this has become also politicized, where it seems like the non-union conservative people want schools open, and and the progressive labor-friendly folks want the schools closed, and it's not that simple. It's it's really, really complicated. So I believe that we can get schools open safely, so long as the faculty, the administration, but employees like everybody, the janitorial staff, the food work, at least the option to get vaccinated, put them up front first. But I think that, again, going back to other cities, they started out with pre-K through second grade. And you start out with the smaller kids, because in our community, I think you have a lot of families who, are forced to stay home. Parents are forced to stay home who who could be working, but because they have little kids that they know they can't stay in front of a terminal all day long, you have to be supervised. So I think communities like ours would really benefit from a gradual opening. Look, and I have a lot of trust with the school board, because as you guys were talking about the council changing, well, so did the district, so did the board. And I have a lot of confidence in, especially, Dr. Alvarez, Carolyn, other people over there that are, they're looking at this really critically. They realize the balance between, emotional, psychological well-being of some of their students and, them losing a year, and the safety of their, faculty and, and teachers, and the safety of those families of those kids who may bring something home. So I think that, they'll get there. I'm definitely not going to sue them. So, I won't be like San Francisco, but I will support them in whatever they need. And, I do think that their folks need vaccines, and I will push for that heavy. So.
Right. Man, yeah, that's really, good to hear. I saw a question about Poseidon, if there was any chance that it was going to be brought up to council now that you're not the president, right, of the water board. But I believe Councilwoman Nelida Mendoza is there. So what kind of direction you believe the council is to give her in her role?
Look, I'll always go back to my position that I had when I was at the district. Even before I was president of the water district, I always said, look, I'm supportive of any new water resource, so long as it's rate neutral to the people of Santa Ana. So, if you can do both, man, that, hats off. But I just think it's a tall order, just because, my last year on the board, they found a contaminant, in the groundwater, PFAS. And so I think that's the real struggle and challenge for the district right now. Just making sure we have clean water, right? As opposed to finding, and investing someplace else where we would be paying twice what we pay for, imported water.
Right. Sensible. Yeah. My last question, of course, I always have to bring
Come on,
it
man,
up.
make it easy, man.
Yeah.
Jose
lightning round.
Yeah, it's a lightning round.
Tell me what my favorite color is, man. Come on,
yeah, something about an attorney question, perhaps.
Right.
So yeah, I always have to bring up the POA. Obviously, their candidates lost soundly last election, but consider the circumstance that maybe there's a narrower, moderate, or conservative slate coming into the next election. Like, what is it that you're gonna do that's gonna make people want to vote for you again over a mailer they get from the POA in 2 years?
Look, I haven't been, endorsed by the POA, for the past 2 cycles, right? In 2016 and 2020, and in fact, was attacked pretty harshly both times. I think the electorate in Santa Ana has really changed, right? They're much more critical of things. They're not as knee-jerk on mailers. And what we found, mailers haven't been all that influential. I think, what we saw last summer, with, people talking about social justice, people demanding that there be some, equity. And, what's really telling to me is what's happening in LA. The DA Gascon, won, and he has some very, very progressive, law enforcement policies. So I think, I always see LA as sort of, we're more similar to LA than we are to some of our neighboring cities. I mean, our policies, and if you look at the school district, same thing, LA Unified tends to do something, Santa Ana follows. And, and we're kind of in that same, we have the same urban challenges that they do. So I think for us, I think nobody is, anti-law enforcement. Nobody is saying, hey, dismantle the police. At least that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, the POA should have its role like any other bargaining unit, like the service have their representatives. But I just think it's wrong for any bargaining unit to have such disproportionate influence, right? To the extent, hey, make your argument. Tell us why, you think, these policies should be different. And I'll listen to you. I have a responsibility and obligation as the mayor to listen to you. But you can't dictate what we do. you can make your best argument. Just like, again, other bargaining units that work with city employees, we can't do things to the detriment of them, and we definitely can no longer do things to the detriment of our residents.
Very good.
And you're just hitting them all out of the park. You ready for ready?
You're ready. You're ready for the next election already, man. You gotta start early.
And it's coming quick, man. Nobody listened to me. I wanted to, this 2-year term on mayors, man. That is no fun.
Harsh.
Yeah,
that is harsh. That is harsh.
In the rush to get rid of Pulido, you kind of perhaps skipped over that. It's like maybe you should be 4 years. This is a pretty difficult job, one, and it takes a good chunk of money, to run these kinds of campaigns, right? To reach all the residents in Santana and stuff. So yeah, that sucks.
We're refining. We're refining constantly. Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
I will. The last thing I wanted to mention, and I wanted to highlight one of the things that perhaps was lost, in all of the different things, whether it's the homeless situation and others, the hero pay, was that y'all passed, the council did, one that allows for immigration status to not be a deterrent in commissioners, to be able to join the different commissions, right? So that's I don't know if it's historic, but it's very significant, given how large of an undocumented population that Santana has. But and that was one thing. But then the second thing is, I believe there was there was a question about whether or not 17-year-olds could serve on commissions, and that also was yeah, we should let youth. And one of the things that your campaign highlighted was the youth investment and the youth engagement and youth involvement in local politics and the future of their city, right? So maybe you could speak to both of those things, in our final time.
Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, look, to the extent that we can engage youth at all levels so they can dictate what they want. So I think for years, what the frustration has been, why are you telling us what we need when you don't ask us, right? So I think the whole idea now is to bring it back to, to them and say, what is it that you want to see? Do you want to see more programming? Do you want to see more capital investment in your area? I mean, just, different things, and bring more funds to that. And I think we can do that. One of the ways is, and you guys probably know this, the mid-year budget that we just saw was, look, we were forecasting about a $19 million deficit. Well, it's, that was a huge number, but that's what was forecasted because of COVID. What we realized is our deficit was almost half that. So that means that some good things were done. One of them, well, maybe not good, but things that offset maybe the losses that we were expecting was the fact that online sales were very strong, right? People were ordering things like, whether it was, Postmates, whether it was just, Amazon or whatever, but sales remained fairly high, a lot higher than what our staff forecasted. But the other thing that kept us, strong was cannabis sales. And man, that went through the roof. I mean, that really outpaced, and that was foreseeable too, right?
Nothing to do with that.
Right. So, good news is that, that is a strong, robust industry that a lot of people said, what are you guys doing getting in there? And a lot of communities like Fullerton are still struggling with it, right? But I'm hoping that we can maybe chip away at some of that to invest in youth, right? Because the whole idea was if we ever get this industry up and going, it's going to give back and it's going to help in ways that will benefit communities. And what better way than to benefit our youth and to have them, have some more resources. That aside, the second one was on, we're right in the middle of passing this ordinance or this adjustment to the ordinance, which strikes language from what the municipal code said. So the municipal code had, you could not serve on a city board or commission if you were not a qualified elector, which means that you had to be a voter, and to be a voter, you had to be a resident or a citizen, right? So that basically blocked anybody who was undocumented from serving on a city board or commission. And so, look, it was a unanimous vote at first reading at the last council meeting. We'll be taking it up for second reading at the following council meeting. I hope it'll remain the same. But I do think it is historic because we have a large, immigrant and undocumented population that they've lived amongst us. They're our neighbors. They pay taxes. They, here, they have their kids in school. They should be able to dictate, city policy and at least be able to advise on not just those advisory bodies, but also some of our quasi-judicial bodies like the Planning Commission and the Personnel Board. So look, it's a proud moment for me because I think, the first council member to appoint somebody who was undocumented, Carlos Perea, to the Measure X committee. And so now I think 4 of us have, folks who were, either dreamers or undocumented who are working their way down this path. And they should be part of city government, man. And I believe strongly about that.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's hard enough to get residents involved in city government. Well, anyone, or you know what I'm saying, non-undocumented people, right? If you're engaged, you're a part of this community. Get in there, man. Get involved.
Look, if you want to serve, like you said, man, and shit, my commissioner Carlos, very sharp, right? I mean, so I know that we have some engaged folks that will do great work for us. So look, it's a good moment.
Hey, if that kind of language is good enough for my president, former president, it's good enough for my mayor. All right.
and this is tea I'm drinking, man. I wish it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like,
not very strong.
Spike that tea. Yeah. Well, listen, it's been an incredible, incredible conversation. A lot of comments, are real positive, and so I think by and large, I'm hearing a lot of, positive, feedback from the community. Perhaps, like maybe paying attention for the first time, and and especially the young people, perhaps. So, as much as pot sales and Postmates deliveries from fast food has gone up in this pandemic where people are trapped at home. I want to believe that so has like their consciousness and awareness around how funding gets moved around, because it's a matter of their, not just can I go out clubbing or to my favorite restaurant, but can abuelita, can my mom, can we live, can we have access to these COVID vaccine, because we want to go back to normal as soon as possible. But also, what does that normal look like? Because after this COVID crisis, the next one that could potentially hit many cities across this country is going to be the housing crisis, when these rents are needing to be paid back, and and these eviction moratoriums are taken away. Then how are we going to deal with that? But I think for myself and perhaps many of the viewers here, we believe that our city is in good hands, and we'll be able to to meet those challenges with strong leadership and experience as yourself, Mr. Mayor. So appreciate everything that you've done so far, and I'm looking forward to the next things. Maybe final comments before we ask you to turn off your video.
Well, look, man, thank you, fellas. It's good to see you guys again. And we'll, like I said, we did this in person a year ago. Yeah. So I don't know, man. Maybe I'm forecasting maybe late spring, early summer, things start smoothing over. But look, it'll be good to get this behind us. It's been a rough year on us. Especially here in Santa Ana. I think other communities. Yeah, I see them. Look, it's like very kind of peripheral, but for us it was really deep, and it still is. So look, I appreciate you guys, what you guys do, keeping everybody informed. So thanks for having me on. This was painless, man. I thought Dylan was going to be a lot harsher on me, so I just thought.
Yeah, we were going to do the lightning round where I ask you how much POA money you take. So yeah, 0. Well, it's easy. That's easy. Yeah. That's too easy.
Oh man. Well, we'll have to get you back on in the next, in the next few months as more things come up, so that maybe this could be a place where you have your, what is it, like fireside chats, if you will, like in the spirit of Roosevelt, right? Yeah. So because this is. I think a lot of folks are saying that, they appreciate the insight into, your, how you're dealing with this, and just being able to hear from, normal person in a normal setting about, these issues that matter to Santaneros and Orange County folks. So,
well, thank you guys, man. You guys take care. Be safe. All right. Thanks.
Likewise. Thanks for coming.
Nos vemos pronto.
Hasta luego. Viva Bolivia!
We didn't even talk about that. Next time.
Next time. That'll be the friendly question. Bolivia trivia.
Take care, fellas.
See ya.
Yeah. The first Bolivian mayor of a major city. We just talked to Bolivian royalty. Like the brother, if he were to go to Bolivia, he would just be hounded. It'd be like Michael Jackson over there.
He's the Michael Jackson.
The little kids following him. It was like,
can he dance?
I think his wife takes the lead on the dancing part. Yeah, she's Mexicana from Zacatecas, so she's definitely got the dancing spirit. But yeah, no, I love Bolivian music. Have you ever heard of it? Like Andean music, or all that?
Maybe that'll be the show next time.
Yeah,
or maybe in 10 years when he's not a politician anymore, he'll come on and do some Bolivian. Perhaps. You never know. You never know what's in store.
Damn, people were saying that where's the hard-hitting questions? This was
ouch.
Softball.
Too many softballs. Huh? They're disappointing the audience.
Maybe next show we'll have a teacher versus parent debate. That'll be like to open or not to open. That is the question. Parents are like, please get these children out of my house.
No, I did have a hard question for him though.
What was it?
It was when I lost my train of thought. And it was really difficult for him to answer that. Actually, no, he swooped in pretty nicely. He saved me there. But that definitely was the most difficult question I asked. Stand behind that.
Yeah. Well, beyond, my personal feelings about him and, the mayors and the city of Santana, like I care a lot about it. I'm sure there's going to be situations where differences of opinion and whatnot, but there's an overall kind of trust that you have, and I have for several council members, including the mayor, that even as we disagree on some issues or the minutia of these things, that overall I believe that that they're going to make the best decision possible, given the context. And I can't say that about a lot of people, I guess, and definitely politicians, right? Where this is a big gap between the Mayor Sarmientos of the world, or Dr. Jose Morenos of the world, and some other dinos of the world that we won't mention here today. Oh, you know what? Screw it. There's going to be a protest tomorrow at Congressman Luke Correa's office, 2223 North Broadway, Santana, to say pass the PRO Act. This is in relation to allowing for unionization to be more easily attainable for workers in different industries. So vote yes, HR 2474. So they will be demanding that he sign on in support of that bill, and the union workers, and the just workers outside of the unions that are looking to unionize, like the Uber workers and other folks, that were trying to before the stupid law got passed. Stupid. But anyways, that's happening tomorrow.
That's happening.
I want to thank everybody that joined in for the first time or all time. John Spiak, Brian, Dr. Alvarez, school board member. Yeah, he said we're going to see tomorrow what's going to happen with the school reopening situation. Janelle Hardy, Timothy Cotran, Oscar Rodriguez, planning commissioner of Huntington Beach, Oscar Rodriguez, friend of the show.
Oh, yeah.
Don Benjamin Vasquez, Donna Michelle Acevedo. Yeah, I was a little bit extra peppier tonight. I think I've kind of getting out of my feelings moment. Yeah. And it might be this coffee that's like nitro.
Woo! Whoa, yeah, that ain't no Your average tea.
Yeah, it's cocaine in a can.
Ooh.
Yeah, but and Alexis, do a little shout out. Vern, I asked your question. You're welcome.
Shout out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but,
good stuff. Good times.
Final comments, Dylan.
My final comments is, I haven't always agreed with Vince Sarmiento on things, but, it's a breath of fresh air compared to Polito. I feel like even for all the skeptics of power and government, we should remain skeptical, right? There's a way to keep holding our elected officials accountable. We can check in with them. We can call them in. We can do all sorts of things, right? But maybe there's an argument that now there's some giving them the benefit of the doubt. Let's try to work with these people, and maybe to someone who's more jaded, they don't want to do that work. That's fine. Don't. But there's some hope to get some good work done at the city level here with some of these council members and the mayor. So I think it's good. Let's let them disappoint us again before we start blowing them up, right? So let's see how far we can get with this uneasy alliance, let's say.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, I think you said well said, good sir. I believe that we need more pragmatic bridge builders, and as opposed to habitual bridge burners. We need to call people in. We need to leave the lines of communication open as much as we can. We need to get off of social media, and talk to our people, our allies, our community members, and really, bring the conversation to a more human place, where you look at people in the eye and you tell them about the things that that you care about and don't, or don't care for, and all the ways in which diálogo, as the great Paulo Freire called it, to not impose but propose, these better ideas that you have for how human beings interact with each other, and governing and legalize, or the legislations and, all these complicated legalistic policy, things that Manny Escamilla, has dreams and nightmares about every night, I'm sure, that are part of what, is complicated and complex, and not a lot of people are perhaps involved in it until it smacks them in the face. But still, I am hopeful that we can continue to build up, this mass, consciousness and mass awareness about, city government, how it runs, and, and if it doesn't run our way, how we can get it to run our way. So, we have 2 years before the next election comes up and the council is going to change yet again, and how it will change will be dependent on the electorate and whether or not they're aware about, how they're being represented or misrepresented. And it goes in all sorts of ways, from city of Santana to the county, to the, the state elections, but of course, to the Congress, so that we don't have just one person, Joe Manchin, has the ability to derail, the will of 70-80% of the people of this country, that want $15 minimum wage, that want rent stabilization, and that want a better, approach to public safety. That doesn't mean militarization of our communities, but means investment, in our youth, and in a better vision than the one that we've currently, seem stuck in. So I am so much more hopeful than I was even a few days ago, and definitely a couple weeks ago. So thank you for being my co-host and friend, Dylan Thompson.
Peppy. Yeah. Yeah.
Call me Peppy Long Stockings, or long hair things. Anyways. And I'm wearing my Santana that looks like this.
Oh, that's right.
All right.
Santa Ana resident.
Yes. Forever the people's mayor. All right. So, and definitely shout out to him for the diligent work. Him and all the folks that are on the front lines and have been, Rebecca Kovacs and Housing is a Human Right folks, Lou Noble, Pat Davis, just, Tamara Jimenez, the different folks that we've had on the show before. Just the list goes on and on. There's just, Muhammad Ali back, in the day, but this, so all sorts of heroes out there that are, trying to do right by these folks, but also, trying to advocate long-term solutions. Housing is a human right, by God.
Gosh darn it.
Yeah. Yes, sir. All right. Thank you, Edgar Silva, for being an awesome audio video engineer. Iron Lion Media, Iron Lion Studios, holding it down. Can't wait to have my brother right here next to me so we can be like, ooh, yeah.
Sometime soon.
Sometime soon. Get that vaccine already.
You got the hookup? Come on.
Dude.
I have a guy, yeah.
It's like getting a golden ticket to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's crazy. Yeah. All right. So from Dylan Thompson and Jose Gloria, shout out to Yenny Diaz, executive producer, and all of us here at It's Happening family, myself included, Jose Gloria, we're signing off.
It's happening.
No es libertad, lo que tú vives es vulgar. Ser un esclavo sin descansar mientras que el burgués se aprovecha de tus labores. Hay que luchar para vencer este sistema capital. Hay que levantar proletarios y la guerra popular. Hay que desarrollar nuestra conciencia para podernos gobernar.